Hey everyone, it's Paul Bertorelli reporting from AirVenture 2019 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. You know, you don't need me to tell you about the history of this airplane behind me. It's the C-47 called That's All Brother. It led the D-Day invasion to Normandy in 1944. Let's think about that a little bit. The guys who flew these airplanes over there, and there were more than 1,500 of them altogether, had maybe a couple hundred hours. So between the first and second lieutenant and the navigator, they probably didn't have 1,000 between them. Now, when the airplanes were flown over this year for the commemoration of the 75th anniversary, the crew in this particular airplane probably had 10,000 hours between them and a whole bunch of technology to get there. It's like night and day. So Doug Rozendaal is going to tell us about it. What did you consider the principal risk?
So when I started this project, I've been flying C-47s for 33 years, I think. My first job was sitting where you're at in the right seat of a DC-3 hauling FedEx boxes in 1986. And when I started doing this, I told lots of folks, flying a C-47 across the North Atlantic is a very understandable risk. And I get that, and I was pretty comfortable with all that. But taking 15 groups of passionate people and putting them under high pressure in an intense situation for 6 or 8 weeks is a psychological experiment. It's kind of like going to the moon. Most of the technology to get to, to Mars, most of the technology we need to get to Mars we have. What we don't know is how to put 6 people in a phone booth and have them live together for a year and a half. And we took it serious. Collins Aerospace donated the use of rafts. And they sent some folks up to Oxford, Connecticut, and we went out in the cold water and inflated a raft and put on poopy suits and climbed in the raft. Kevin Riley did some research and showed us lots of case studies of C-47s that had successfully ditched. It's a very, very, quote-unquote seaworthy airplane. He had one picture of a C-47 sitting in the open ocean in fairly sizable waves. And there were 3 guys standing in the door with the doors open and the raft was tied there. And they were just standing in the airplane. It was floating, waiting for the airplane to sink so they would step in the raft. And, again, the Coast Guard being there, they assured us with high confidence if we got in the raft intact, we'd be picked up.
Let's talk about what that 22-year-old lieutenant had in 1944 crossing.
Well, he had what you see right here. That's what he had. This airplane is as original as it can be. And he had a brand new, fresh out of school navigator back there who was looking up through the star dome trying to get sunshots if there weren't clouds. And when they got to Greenland, they had to pick the fjord they were going to go up. And, it's like Ernie Gann. And, it was, again, just an entirely different experience than what we did.
If that crew had 1,000 hours total, it would have been a lot.
That's exactly correct. They flew exactly the same route. Presque Isle, Maine, Goose Bay, Newfoundland, Narsarsuaq, Greenland, Reykjavik, Iceland, and Prestwick, Scotland. That was the route they flew. This airplane went from Canada to the Azores when it went across, but lots of airplanes went across the North Atlantic, and they did it in a lot less friendly time of the year than we did too.
Is the key consideration Narsarsuaq?
Narsarsuaq is an interesting airport. It's basically a one-way in, one-way out airport. It's uphill. The weather there is pretty unpredictable. You can abort from about midfield, but if you get beyond midfield, you don't want to do a go-around. You're fairly well committed. We went in on bright sunshiny day with a 12-knot tailwind, which is more than you would normally land an airplane like this, but certainly not problematic, and it was effortless. There is an instrument approach, but the minimums are 1,500 feet, and the instrument approach is designed for turbine airplanes because it requires a pretty steep descent, which would be very difficult in this airplane.
And how about total time en route?
Well, the whole trip, round trip, from beginning to end was just under 100 hours in the airplane. The D-Day Squadron mustered in Oxford, Connecticut, and we started flying together to get some practice and to get to know each other and develop some trust and some relationships, which were important. Eric Zipkin with the D-Day Squadron did a fantastic job. He put out a call for a volunteer to help us with logistics, and a Coast Guard helicopter pilot in Alaska stepped up and volunteered, and my understanding is the Coast Guard matched his leave because I think they figured it was better to educate us and have us be informed than to try to pick us out of the ocean.
What kind of communicate? Did you have HF or were you
we
VHF
had HF,
only?
But it wasn't useful. We did relays and we relayed position reports, and I don't know of anybody on the trip, you know, that was successful in using their HF.
We'll move on to the engine here at Oshkosh. You had what happened here, what you would have preferred not to have happened at Nasarsarak, which is you have an engine problem.
Yeah, so on the way home, I left the airplane at Paris Air Show. I flew the Paris Air Show, and then I came home on an airliner. I'd been gone for 6 weeks, and one of our other flight crews wanted the opportunity to cross the Atlantic, so I took that opportunity to come home. And on the way home, they started to notice a little vibration in the left engine, but it was, you know, it was subtle. And you know, when it got here, they said it was getting worse. So I came up Saturday, worked with the folks over at Basler Turbo Conversions Friday and Saturday, and we researched everything we could find. And you know, the shake is getting worse, so we've decided we're going to ground the engine or ground the airplane and swap the engine. Could be a blower that's lost a piece of impeller, could be a counterweight that's stuck. We just don't know what it is. But we've eliminated all the easy stuff. So it's time to bite the bullet and hang our spare engine. So we're out of business here for Oshkosh.
But you're in the ideal place to have that done.
We're in a great place to have it. You know, the folks over at Basler Turbo have been working with us for 3 days. We worked together and explored every opportunity. Changed the propeller. You know, we thought maybe it could be a propeller, but we're safe and sound and on the ground and not on the side of the road in the Nasarsarak.
Talk a little bit about airport access in Europe. I think it's fair to say you were somewhat alarmed by what you found.
Spending 6 weeks flying in Europe was really a wake-up call, and it caused me to see what's happening here in America in context. And access to aviation in America and in Europe is incredibly limited. You know, one airport we landed at was a fairly small airport, one runway, no airline service. The airport opens at 9 and closes at 6, and we landed and did 2 operations there, a landing, a takeoff, and another landing and takeoff. And the fees were over $1,500 for those 2 landings. It just, general aviation as we know it in America does not function the way we understand it here. And if you see it in that context and you start to look at how our access is already being restricted in America, you can see where we're headed. And you know, aviators are incredibly passionate, and we fight above our weight class in Congress, and we've got to start talking to, well, AOPA is aware of this problem and they're making noise about it, but we've got to get behind their efforts to guarantee access to our airports. You know, a year ago we won the privatization battle, but that battle's not gone forever. There will be another attempt. It might be in a different way, and I'm not opposed to privatization necessarily. I'm just opposed to the way it was proposed. And had it gone through the way it was proposed, I think we'd be one step closer to the European model, and I don't think that's what we want for general aviation in America.
Okay, thanks a lot, Doug.
Thank you.
This is Paul Bertorelli reporting for AVweb. I'm with Doug Rozendaal. Thanks for watching. Walking through my shot, walking through my shot. It's okay, we're working over here. Hey everyone, it's Paul Bertorelli. They're walking through my shot, but that's okay, it happens all the time. And they're walking through my shot. Morning.
Are you with the commemorate?
Well, you're walking through my shot. I'm trying to shoot but
Oh, I'm sorry.
just they're over there. Then they'll fix you up.
Okay, come on.
You-
Come here, Ashley.
Who's taking the picture?
Oh, you don't? I thought you had a thing. All right, this is good. Close, close, close.
All right.
All right, set, go.
Good job.
Cool guys.
All right.
Having a good time? Having fun?
Yeah, we're having a great time.
Great. Walking through my shot.
Gotta be determined.
Really enjoy the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Right through the shot. Why would they know, right? Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll wait till the traffic clears.
Want me to hold traffic for you?
I wouldn't mind it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It'd take me, I don't know, 2 minutes to get this right. Thank you. Thank you. Who flew these airplanes from the U.S. to Europe, and it was more than 15